What's up, guys? Today we're going to be replacing the steering stem bushings and bearings in this 400EX. Let's get into it. Here are the parts you're going to need. You got your bushing right here, which I got this off of eBay. It's pretty cheap. And here are the bearings. This is the Tusk steering bearing kit. It comes with 2 dust seals, a cotter pin, and a bearing. There will be links in the description below where I got this stuff from. Okay, first most obvious step in order to get to the steering column and steering stem, I guess I should say, is remove the plastics. Now, I have not put the plastics back on since replacing the gaskets. It's been, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, maybe even longer actually, because it's been pretty cold out and I just haven't really wanted to be out here in the garage. In that case, remove your plastics. Next step, they have 2 nuts here. It looks like either 10 or 12s. I bet they're 12s. We're going to remove those, and then this steering stem should be loose. And that's where your bushing is right there. As you can see, mine's pretty cracked and old. So we're going to get that replaced, and also the bearings, which are down here. And having the plastics off of here, also, if you didn't notice, I took this fan off of here. It was kind of getting in my way for all this stuff. But the bearings are down here, and in order to best access them, we need to flip the quad up so we can get to the nut on the bottom and the cotter pin. Pull the cotter pin, get the nut off, the steering stem should just slide right off. Remove these 2 nuts. They are 12s. They may be bolts, actually. Once they're out, the steering stem should be loose. This one's kind of in a crappy place, so let's get an extension for that. As you can see, this here is blocking access to this nut. I keep saying nut, it's a bolt. They're bolts. Okay, once you break both of these bolts loose and you can slide them out, this bracket should just come right off, and you have access to the steering stem bushing. As you can see, mine's really dirty. You need to grease this thing every once in a while, and I've never greased it, so could be a reason why it squeaks. This right here will cause a lot of squeaking, but we're gonna go ahead and pull it off. Here's the old one, here's the new one. This is just snapping. It's all like dry rotting. So I'm gonna go ahead and grease the hell out of it. This new one. I'm gonna clean up the steering stem shaft here. It's all pretty dirty in there. I'm gonna clean all that up. I'll probably, before I put the new one on, I'm gonna start with this here and take off the cotter pin and bolt. One thing I should add is make sure you put your bearing in the freezer, because these things get cold. But make sure you pack it with grease first. So I'm going to pack mine with grease, and then I'm going to go plop it in the freezer. Okay, so once your bearing's packed and you're done with that, you need to put the four-wheeler up right. It'd be easier to access the cotter pin and stuff. And since I don't have any gas or there's nothing attached to it, I'm not worried about anything leaking. There's actually no oil in the motor right now because I haven't replaced the motor or the oil since I drained the oil. Easiest way to do it is get it in a position where you can lift it up, put it into gear, and lift it up. Oh. Like that. Here's the cotter pin, and here's the nut. So we need to bend this cotter pin up, break the nut, pop the bearing out, pop everything back in. Okay guys, so once the cotter pin's off, now it's time to put a nut on there and break this loose. It looks to be a 22. That fits on there perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and get my impact and see if I can break that loose with my impact. Okay, so that pulled out of there really easy. Next is to get this dust seal out. Once the dust seal's out, we can get the dust seal out on the other side. I think the steering stem is loose, pulling in and out. I think I'm going to probably have to take these tie rod ends off, which sucks, but it's going to have to be done. Okay, so took the dust seal off. I guess this is a little like end piece here, but this is what was happening as I was pulling the dust seal off. As you can see, this thing is coated in there with gunk. So they definitely needed to be replaced. Who knows when the last time these things were replaced? Probably never. So it's definitely going to be an improvement. Let's get these tie rod ends off and pull this steering stem out. You do have to take both tie rod ends off connecting the steering stem, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Next step, I need to get this dust seal out, and then I can pound the bearing out towards the top. We're going to get that out and show you guys what the bearing looks like if I can get it out. Okay, so it looks like a 1-inch socket fits perfectly in here to pound out this bearing. You want to make sure you get this outer racing, because the inner race here will come out easy, especially since this bearing already looks like it's pretty trash. So you definitely want to get something that's pretty snug in here. I could even use something a little bigger, but I don't have anything bigger that'll fit in there, so 1 inch is going to have to do. Okay, so don't be like me and forget that there is a C-clip right there that you had to get out of there before you start trying to pound this thing out of there. It's not going to come out unless you take that out of there. Okay, so yeah, that makes it a whole lot easier once you get that C-clip out. The bearing just pops right out. As you can see, it's pretty nasty in there. We're going to clean this out. We're going to add some grease to it in here, and then I'm going to throw the new one in there, put the C-clip in there. Everything should just kind of fall into place. Also got to clean this steering stem thing off. Okay, so I got it all cleaned out where the actual bearing is going to sit. It looks bad, but I think it's just because the old bearing was trash. Now it's time to get the new bearing from the freezer, pop it in, put the seals on. We'll put the C-clip on after the bearing's in, then put the seals on, slip the steering stem in. Okay guys, so my battery's going dead, so I'm going to try to say this fast. This is an absolute pain in the ass to get in here, especially if you don't have a socket that completely fits the outer ring of the bearing. But I finally found one, got one in there, it's pounded in. I'm going to pack some grease in here too as well on both sides. I'm going to put the C-clamp in there, C-ring, whatever they're called. Then I'm going to put the dust seals on, then I'll be able to slide the steering column back through. Okay, so now that that's all done, next is this right here. So I cleaned this off, I cleaned both of these holders off, and now I'm going to grease the holders, grease the steering stem, and also grease the bushing. This is the last step here. I've got the tie rods back on. I do not know the torque spec for this, so I just hit it with my 1/2-inch driver here. I just did the automatic setting. I don't know, I couldn't find a spec. It said 55 one thing, and then another guy said there wasn't one, so I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and stick the cotter pin through. Once the cotter pin is through, the job is complete. Steering seems a lot better, it's a lot smoother, doesn't have any catches. I'm going to call it good. Put everything back on the quad, put some oil in it, and take it for a spin. If you like this kind of stuff, just comment down below what you think I did wrong, if I did anything wrong, or if you have any questions. Like this video and please subscribe because, you know, it helps me out. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Peace.